All right, so let's just cut the crap and dive right into this whole boy band thing.
Hmm.
You think it's all just like cheesy love songs and synchronized dance moves? Think again. Get ready to have your mind blown because we're going deep into the history of boy bands.
Buckle up, it's a wild ride.
It's going to get more fucked up and fascinating than you might think, I'll tell you that.
For sure.
But before we get into all the juicy stuff, let's define what the hell a boy band actually is.
Yeah, so basically, it's a group of young guys,
Young guys.
usually in their teens or 20s, who sing and dance. And they pretty much make teenage girls scream their lungs out.
Yeah.
The whole point is to create this, like, perfect image, like a manufactured image,
A manufactured image.
to appeal to a very specific audience.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like crafting this fantasy, this whole manufactured image of like the ideal boyfriend. It's marketing genius, but also kind of creepy when you think about it.
Totally. But the history of boy bands, it goes way deeper than just a marketing ploy. There's like a whole cultural evolution here, which is pretty fascinating.
Okay, so where the hell do we begin? Who are like the granddaddies of this whole boy band thing?
Well, some people would say, believe it or not, the Beatles.
Hmm.
The Beatles were like the original boy band.
Wait, the Beatles?
Yeah.
Those like mop-top dudes who wrote all those classic tunes?
Right.
They were like rock gods.
Yeah, but think about it. Beatlemania was basically like the OG version of all the fan frenzy that we see today.
Like the screaming fans, the obsession.
Yeah, all that. Like, the Hollywood Reporter even compared the hysteria surrounding the Beatles to what we've seen with, like, all the later boy bands.
So were they or weren't they a boy band?
I mean, they definitely had the fan craze for sure, but they were also, like, incredibly talented musicians who wrote their own music and they played their own instruments. That's a big difference from a lot of, later boy bands.
Okay, fair enough. So if the Beatles weren't the blueprint, who was?
Well, now, the Monkees, they were a different story. The Monkees were literally created for a TV show.
For a TV show?
Yeah, which is way closer to, like the classic boy band formula we see today.
Ah, so it's all about that manufactured image, like from the get-go.
Exactly. But even before the Monkees, you had groups like the Jackson 5
The Jackson 5.
and the Osmonds. These guys were true pioneers of the, like, boy band template. They had it all. They had family ties, soul music, synchronized dance moves. Like, they had the whole thing.
Yeah, those guys were huge. I remember my oldest sister, she used to plaster her bedroom walls with their posters.
Mm.
But you know what? They also had some serious talent, especially Michael Jackson.
Oh, absolutely. Like, they really paved the way for, like, the whole boy band explosion that was about to hit the world.
Okay, so we've got the early days covered, but how did boy bands become this, like, global phenomenon? When did things really blow up?
Okay, well, New Kids on the Block, or NKOTB, as the cool kids called them,
In KOT?
they really took things to a whole other level in the 80s.
They did.
They were like the boy band prototype.
Yeah.
The catchy tunes, the dance moves, the whole package. And they inspired a whole wave of boy bands across Europe and Asia.
And then there was Menudo, right?
Yeah.
That whole aging out policy they had was totally fucked up.
Oh my God, tell me about it.
Like getting kicked out of the band just
Yeah.
because you hit puberty, your voice changed.
Yeah.
Talk about pressure.
Talk about her.
Like a boy band meat grinder, just like
Mhm.
churning through these poor kids.
Yeah, but I guess it, it kept the fans coming back for more, right? Like, always a fresh face to obsess over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clever marketing, for sure. And by the 90s, boy bands were dominating the charts all over the world.
Oh, yeah.
Take that, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Boyzone, Westlife.
Everywhere.
Like, they were everywhere you looked.
It was boy band mania.
Boy band mania.
Yeah.
But weren't they kind of looked down on by the, the music critics? Like, were they all style and no substance?
Oh, yeah, totally. A lot of critics saw them as, like, manufactured and, lacking credibility because, they often didn't write their own music or play instruments. It was like the era of, like, grunge and Britpop and bands like, Oasis and Blur.
Yeah.
They were getting all the critical acclaim.
Right. It's all about being, authentic, even if it meant being a bunch of pretentious, guitar-smashing wankers.
But you know what? Boy bands didn't give a shit.
No.
They had a massive fan base and were selling millions of records.
Laughing all the way to the bank.
Oh, yeah, they were laughing all the way to the bank.
The people had spoken. But the music landscape,
Yeah,
was changing. Guitar music didn't just disappear.
right.
How did boy bands adapt?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. In the 2000s, K-pop kind of exploded onto the scene. And, Korean boy bands like BTS just took the genre to a whole new level. And these guys are like incredibly talented and they have this like level of dedication that's like mind-blowing.
Oh, yeah, K-pop is a whole other beast.
Yeah.
They've got the synchronized dancing down to a science.
Oh, yeah.
And their fans are like a freaking army.
They are insanely popular and for a good reason.
Right.
They blend different music styles.
Yeah.
They've got incredible choreography.
Right.
And they connect with their fans on a whole other level.
Didn't some K-pop group break like 1 billion records in 2024?
They did. Stray Kids debuted at #1 on the US Billboard 200 with their first 6 albums. That's never been done before.
Wow.
It's crazy. K-pop's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, that's impressive. Okay, so we've seen how boy bands have evolved over the years, but let's get back to the basics for a second. Is there like a secret formula for creating like a successful boy band?
There is a formula. It's all about like the cute one. Like each member has a role to play, and it's all very carefully designed to make fans go wild.
It's like they're playing like characters in this carefully constructed like boy band universe.
Exactly. And the producers, they control, like everything, the music, the look, the promotion. It's like a whole system designed to just like create maximum impact.
But haven't some boy bands pushed back against that control? Tried to like be more than just puppets?
Absolutely. Take like Gary Barlow from Take That, for example. He was a major songwriter for the group.
Oh, yeah.
And like more recently, groups like JLS, they've prioritized songwriting from the beginning. They want to be seen as like, artists, not just products.
So it's not just about, like pretty faces and catchy tunes. There's some actual talent and hustle behind the scenes.
Oh, for sure. And the stakes are high. These guys are competing for, fame and fortune and, the adoration of millions of fans.
Speaking of high stakes, what happens when a boy band member decides to go solo? Is that like the kiss of death for the group?
It can be, but, sometimes it leads to even bigger success. Think like Justin Timberlake from NSYNC or Robbie Williams from Take That.
Yeah.
Those guys became huge stars in their own right.
So maybe that's why there's always that bad boy in the group, right? Got to have someone ready to like break free and cause a stir.
Uh-huh. That's one way to look at it.
Right. So we've talked about the evolution of boy bands, the manufactured image, the solo careers. But do all these groups, do they actually like being called boy bands?
Not always. Some groups, like, Backstreet Boys, Westlife, they think the term is, like, dismissive. They feel like it implies that, they're all about, like, image and not, like, musical substance.
Yeah, I get that. It's like they're trying to break free from that stereotype and, like, be taken seriously as musicians.
Exactly. But, no matter what you call them, boy bands have made an undeniable impact on pop music.
They have.
They offer this sense of fantasy and escape and, like, a connection that resonates with fans across generations.
I think you're right. Like, boy bands often get a bad rap.
They do.
But they've brought a lot of joy to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, isn't that what music is all about?
Exactly. I mean, they've brought joy to, millions and shaped pop music in ways that people don't even realize.
So where do we go from here? What's next for boy bands? Will K-pop just, like, keep ruling the world, or will something new come along?
That's the million-dollar question. K-pop is a powerhouse right now, but who knows what trends are, like, lurking around the corner?
Yeah.
Music is always changing.
Maybe we'll see the, like, classic boy band formula make a comeback. Imagine, like, a group of guys with, like, perfect dance moves and, like, those catchy as hell pop anthems that get stuck in your head for days.
Don't forget the carefully crafted personalities.
Yeah.
You gotta have, the heartthrob.
Right.
The bad boy.
Yeah.
The cute one. It's all part of the formula.
And let's not forget about, like, social media. Boy bands today have, like, a direct line to their fans, which is a total game changer.
Oh, yeah. It's a whole new world compared to the days of fan mail and, like, magazine posters.
Imagine if the Beatles had, like, Instagram. It would have been pure chaos.
Well, maybe not chaos, but definitely a different game.
So what are, like, the key things that make boy bands stand out even today? What's the, like, the secret sauce that keeps fans coming back for more?
It all boils down to a few things. Catchy tunes, of course.
Right.
But also, like, that carefully crafted image that we talked about.
Right.
And those intricate dance routines, they're just, like, mesmerizing to watch.
It's like performance art, isn't it?
Absolutely. And then you have that, like, authenticity. You have that, like, authentic, 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 authentic,
It's like performance art, isn't it?
Absolutely. And then you have that, like, undeniable connection with the fans. Boy bands, they create like a sense of community, a shared experience that goes beyond just like listening to the music.
It's about like, feeling like you're part of something bigger than yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. And let's be honest, there's something undeniably appealing about, a group of talented, good-looking guys singing and dancing their hearts out.
Okay, I'll admit it. I have a soft spot for like a well-executed boy band performance.
But seriously, these guys, they have to work their asses off to achieve that level of perfection.
They do.
There's a lot of pressure, to maintain that perfect image and deliver like flawless performances.
And don't forget the constant scrutiny from the media and the pressure to like stay relevant in a constantly evolving industry.
Yeah, it's not an easy gig, that's for sure. But the ones that make it big, they're the ones who can adapt and evolve with the time.
So what advice would you give to like an aspiring boy band member today? Like what does it take to like make it in this crazy world?
First and foremost, hone your craft.
Okay.
Singing, dancing, stage presence.
Right.
You got to be damn good at all of it.
What about like songwriting? Is that like a must-have these days?
It definitely helps. Having like creative control over your music can give you an edge, but even if you don't write your own songs, you need to be able to like connect with the material and make it your own.
So it's about more than just hitting the high notes. It's about having that X factor, that certain something that makes you stand out from the crowd.
You nailed it. And don't underestimate the power of hard work and dedication. The music industry is tough, so you got to be willing to put in the hours.
Right.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to, like, break the mold.
Yeah.
Boy bands have come a long way since the days of, like, the Osmonds.
Oh, they have?
That's right. The future of boy bands is wide open. Who knows what, like, incredible talent and innovative music is, like, waiting to be discovered.
Well, I, for one, am excited to see what the future holds. And let's not forget, it's all about, having fun.
Absolutely. If you're not enjoying the ride, like, what's the point?
Well said. We've been talking about all these boy bands and, like, the impact they've had on music.
Yeah, it's been a trip down memory lane.
It has.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, have you ever had, like, a guilty pleasure boy band, one that you, like, secretly jammed out to, even if you didn't want to admit it?
All right, I'll confess. Back in the day, I was a huge Backstreet Boys fan.
No way, get out. Everyone had a crush on Nick Carter.
Oh, he was definitely dreamy.
But let's be real, Brian Luttrell had the voice of an angel.
Okay, you got me there. Their harmonies were on point.
Speaking of Backstreet Boys, what's your, like, all-time favorite song? Don't tell me it's I Want It That Way.
Actually, it is. That song is a classic. It never gets old.
All right, I can't argue with that. I Want It That Way is a certified banger. It's the kind of song that just makes you want to get up and dance.
And sing along at the top of your lungs.
Exactly. It's the perfect example of what makes boy bands so great. They create these, like, anthemic, feel-good songs that just stick with you.
And they make you want to, like, relive your youth, even if just for a few minutes.
Speaking of reliving our youth, I think it's time to wrap things up. But before we do, I have one final question for you.
Hit me with it.
If you could give one piece of advice to, like, the boy bands of the future, what would it be? Like, what wisdom would you impart to these young hopefuls?
That's a tough one, but I think I'd tell them to stay true to themselves.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to experiment, to push boundaries, and to, create music that reflects who they are as artists.
Wise words. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the music. It's about, like, expressing yourself and connecting with people on a deeper level.
You said it.
Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into the world of boy bands. We've explored their history.
We have.
Their impact.
Yeah.
And their enduring appeal. It's been a wild ride, man.
It has.
Through the history of boy bands, from, those, like, cheesy haircuts to the global domination of K-pop. Who knew there was so much to, like, unpack?
It's a surprisingly complex and fascinating world. Yeah. There's a lot more to it than meets the eye.
Damn right. Boy bands have left their mark on music and pop culture. Like, it's undeniable.
They've evolved and adapted over the years.
Yeah.
But that core appeal, that connection with fans, that's something that never goes out of style.
So the next time you hear someone talking shit about boy bands, you can set them straight.
Tell them to educate themselves.
All right.
And open their minds. Boy bands are here to stay.
Well, folks, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of boy bands. We've laughed, we've learned, and we've maybe even shed a tear or two reminiscing about our favorite groups.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you. Hopefully you've gained like a new appreciation for the artistry and impact of boy bands.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a sudden urge to, like, blast some NSYNC and practice my best boy band moves. Bye, everyone.